Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Nancy?
I am doing very well, and thank you for asking. I appreciate it. I'm glad to have you on our podcast, and I'm sure that the information that we're going to bring forward is going to bring some, queries, and then we'll let people know where they can get in touch with you. But to begin with, can you tell me where you're situated and also walk me through the moment when you decided to go vegan?
Sure. Well, I live in what's called Henderson, Nevada, which is just outside of Las Vegas. And I have been vegan for about 20 years. And previous to that, I was toying with it. I was I wasn't eating meat, but I think I was eating cheese. I had fish. And then one day it just sort of hit me that these animals are being mistreated and they don't have a life. And I just told a friend, I go, I'm done. And that's literally what happened. And I haven't looked back.
Wow. So you just it just came to you and you're like, all right, see ya. Won't want
Right.
to be
That's
ya.
right.
That's great. What inspired you to start A Better Life for Animals? That's your nonprofit that's dedicated to rescuing, protecting, and advocating for animals in need.
Yes. Well, my journey was at first, I was just happy to be taking care of myself, happy that I was a vegan, didn't feel like I had to advocate for what someone else was going to do. And over time, it just became more and more painful, quite frankly, because there's so much suffering going on and so little being done about it that it just felt like I had to do more. So I did more incrementally. I wrote three children's books through Lantern Publishing on the subject. And I think it was really that inspired me to maybe I needed a website and then I decided I needed to, what could I do? As this working person who lives in a suburban setting, there's got to be something I can do. And what I can do, just like Nancy, is I have a voice. So I met up with Kathleen Gage of Vegan Visibility, which was a wonderful connection because together, we have put together a podcast this past year. We're now in like our 55th episode. And we've been doing summits. So it's like my feeling of I needed to do more continues to grow. It's not over yet because just until I'm finished on this planet this time, I will be speaking out for animals.
And I could so connect with that because that's how it happened for me when I first went vegan. Then I was like, okay, what can I do? And so I started with, okay, I can put together a magazine. So I put together New Mexico Vegan. And then after that, it's like, what more can I do? So I organized the Red and Green Veg Fest here in Albuquerque. So it's great because you feel like you need to put it out there, not only to help the animals and the planet, but other humans who are suffering with illnesses that they might be able to either reverse completely or make it better in some case, in some way.
Well, Nancy, we know that the governmental agencies and the experts in our lives lie to us. They either lie to us or they don't study the information. And you and I both know that there's nothing healthy about eating animals. And so, yes, anytime that somebody is suffering, and if they're at all open to hearing it from a lay person, I'm absolutely happy to share how you can all of your levels can be elevated as a result of eating a compassionate lifestyle. And I'm also willing to share any of my recipes, or I cook for my friends. I've had parties. They're always I'm always trying to promote plant-based living. That's not my main thing because I don't consider myself a chef. But you're absolutely right. If people could just make small changes, that opens the door to looking at, well, what else could I do? And I think when people realize that you don't need to do that to survive and to thrive, then they become more open to seeing what's going on. Because I think in the beginning, it's just too much.
Yes, and I also think that we are so conditioned by society to think a certain way that,
Mhm.
as soon as you hear something, your thing is to be in the defensive,
Mhm.
because you don't want to be told that you're doing something wrong, or that, that you don't care. Um, so people kind of close their ears. That's why, some companies that are out there putting food out in the market, they won't even put in the label that it's vegan, even though it's vegan, because they've communicated to me and to my partner that when they put that word on it, sometimes they don't sell because it has that word. And how foolish it is to go by that.
That word has really been vilified, and yet it's a beautiful word. I can speak on that. We have so many situations where you get a vegan menu and only the vegans read it. It's as though the rest of the table they're not in that club. It's like
Right.
this is just if we could perhaps do away with the vegan menu and just have, you know, beautiful descriptions of plants and vegetables, that are absolutely every bit as delicious on the menu, I think that people would be more open to that. I went to a event last week, and they know I'm vegan, so they provided me with a whole vegan display of food, which was wonderful, and I loved it. But what was sad to me was at the end, they go, "Oh, here's some baggies. Pack it all up. You can take all of it home." As if to say, well, we wouldn't be eating that in my house. And I just want to, we all know these foods are good. It's not a separate category that's only for vegans, but there's some barriers there that need to be broken down, I think. And maybe it's the industries that support animal agriculture that are in favor of this divisiveness.
Well, of course, and they also line the pockets of the politicians and, you know, uh, big pharma, the meat industry, the dairy industry.
Right.
They got lots of money, so
Yep.
they pay, and because they pay them, these politicians and our government doesn't really care about our health, because if they did, they wouldn't be promoting meat and dairy, knowing full well that it's not healthy for us.
Right.
I mean, there's documents and research that shows that, and yet they don't want to, it's like, drink some Clorox for your COVID or something kind of mentality. It's
Hmm.
beyond, um, like it's really beyond comprehension how people listen to these individuals who have no concept and no interest in making the public healthier. They're just interested in lining their pockets, and therefore they promote whatever whoever has the most money to give can give you.
That's why we have to speak up because people need to study these things for themselves. There's so many sources out there that are not credible. And
Right.
I know we're all just sick about the new food pyramid. For goodness sake, where did that come from? It's just horrific.
It came from
So,
the lining of the pocket of money. That's where it came from. And I guess
yeah.
that's why I talked about that. But um, Cheryl, how do you approach educating communities about compassion and veganism and responsible animal care in a way that truly resonates?
I think we have to do it through the kids. I have written 3 children's books about animals in the factory farm system that end up in sanctuaries. But it seems to me that through sanctuaries and for people who are somewhat removed from animals. We have been, unless it's a cat or a dog, we don't have a relationship with a pig or a cow or a goat. We certainly don't have any relationship with a chicken or a fish, and yet they suffer terribly. I think that by having the opportunity to meet these animals in their natural environment, living their life as was intended, then it breaks down a barrier, I believe. It's an opportunity for everyone, but especially for children. And if you bring your children, then the parents are going to be also open to that. And I think that children aren't born without compassion. It's raised into us. It's just numbed out of us, all of us.
Right.
So there's so many angles at this problem, Nancy, as you know. So I've been sort of narrowing mine to, let's work with the children. Let's work with the sanctuaries and educate, a compassionate way of living.
And over 10 billion land animals, let's say, are raised and slaughtered in the U.S. each year. So talk to us a little bit about understanding the importance of sanctuaries.
So sanctuaries are where a lucky few animals that were slated for slaughter find themselves in a place where they can live out the rest of their life in peace and harmony. So we're not going to save our way out of this. There are so many things that have to happen. We have to change the food system, and there's, legislation to work on things like that is very important. But sanctuaries are the only, otherwise we're all these animals that we're not raising for food are going extinct. So where else are we going to have an opportunity to meet these animals? If you met a turkey, you probably would, if you really got to know a turkey, you wouldn't want to eat it, for a meal.
No.
So I just don't know how else in modern society we are going to break those barriers down where we take them from just a thing. Because you go to the grocery store and there's just an aisle of plastic packaging. You're not even allowed to say what it actually is, it seems. I think there's probably lobbying against that. And
Right.
yet that is all cruelty. All of those animals suffered from inception till their final breath. It's the worst thing we're doing as
Yes.
people.
Yes, I truly believe that as well. And as you were saying, with regards to the sanctuaries, and when the kids and the adults, when they go to a sanctuary and they meet an animal, I think that makes, like you said, it makes an impact, makes a difference, because people then go, wow, like they get to see the personality of the animal. They're not all the same. They all have different, some are more shy, some are not, so they have personalities like people do. And so I think that when we go to a sanctuary, that we can see this and experience this, and maybe that can help us maybe open up our mind a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and our hearts to understand, oh, wait a minute, look at how they act, or look at what they do, or and things like that.
Exactly. I've heard it said that compassion is a muscle that needs to be exercised. And we have to be given the opportunity, and then we have to practice it. So you don't want to have a child go and visit a sanctuary and then have to go home or go to lunch at school and be served chicken McNuggets, as an example. There needs to be a whole program around, and here's what we could eat. Here's a garden. Here's ways that we can feed ourselves in a healthy and compassionate way. So there has to be follow-up, I believe, because our society, I think it's still true that you have to have a carton of milk served at your school, on your school plate. So there's so many forces against it. So the only way a person is going to be able to say, no, I don't want that, is if we give them alternatives. And you don't want them going home and eating what, they ate yesterday after they've experienced, an animal on its terms. So there's a lot of integration, I think, that goes there. And I think that it requires parents and children and families and then sisters, because, when we have the desire to, we drink almond milk now instead of, or soy milk instead of cow's milk. And these things are taking hold. So it can happen. But
And
it takes more than just one thing for most
I
people.
believe that to be true. And also, I want to point out that, you know, zoos and marine parks, those things prioritize entertainment and profit. They do not, even though they might say it's for conservation, it's all a lie.
Mhm.
It's not about that. It's about bringing you in. That's why you always see, oh, a new little baby chimp was born at the zoo, or we got a new baby. They all do that to draw on your emotional strings and on the fact that you have been so conditioned to think that this is a good place. But actually, if you want to go somewhere that is going to have a bigger impact on the animals and to see more realistic actions, reactions, sanctuaries are where you want to go and not these other things that are prioritized for gaining money, and that's it,
Exactly.
right?
That's right.
Um, so, your mission, again, is to support sanctuaries and rescue um, efforts and educational initiatives. So tell us about if people want to get involved with your organization, Better Life for Animals. How do they go about doing that?
Sure. Well, we have a website. It's just as it sounds, betterlifeforanimals.com. And on that, at that site, you're going to find all of our podcasts. You're going to find my books. You're going to find our summit that we just held for Sanctuary Blueprint. And we are about to have 2 master classes as a part of that summit. So you'll find all of that information. We have blogs, and most of what we're trying to do, Nancy, is shine a light on various sanctuaries because they're all over the country and they run on a shoestring. They have no time. They have no money to be, really, except for the very largest ones, really promoting themselves so that people know where they are. So our goal is to work with, industries or organizations like Danielle Hannish with LEAP, where she's got like basically the compassionate equivalent to 4-H in many of these sanctuaries where they have programs that encourage their parents to send their children to learn about this. That makes it cool. So my main push at this moment with Better Life for Animals is to shine a light on all the many sanctuaries out there and to find ways to get people to know about them and to frequent them and support them.
Very good. And also, you talked about your illustrated children's book, which is, I think you have
Mhm.
Gabriel Cluck and the Pickle
Pickle.
the pig,
Yeah.
and they're
Yes.
all really
Yes.
cute. Um, so talk about your inspiration for writing those children's illustrated books.
Well, this was during COVID, and there was a famous chef on NPR who they were pouring out the milk because they didn't have distribution. And this famous chef was saying, the government needs to let the restaurant industry get involved because they can handle the distribution of the milk. And I got very upset because I thought maybe, just maybe during this pandemic, people might wake up to what was going on and why we were having a pandemic. And maybe we would make a shift in our food system. So I got very upset at the thought that they were going to keep things business as usual. And so I wrote Gabriel, who is basically a lone veal cow. He was slated to become veal, and he's rescued, and he wakes up the community. And so, having written that, I now had to consider I wanted to cover the other animals. So I love the book Cluck. It's about some elder birds of all types, including parrots. It's actually narrated by a parrot who is talking about, they've seen it all. They're the elders. They know how it can be. And they're literally watching the equivalent to a Chick-fil-A or a chicken fast food something being built down the street, along with a warehouse, which is going to be housing the chickens. So Cluck is a fortunate bird because he was born and raised in a sanctuary and he gets all the benefits of that. But the sanctuary basically gets together to try and save some of those chickens that are found in that warehouse. So I love that book. And then we wrote a book about an actual true story with regard to pickle, because I learned that, down south or in the areas where there are a lot of pig farms, if there are weather disruptions like a hurricane, these animals are left to fend for themselves. And if they can get out, which they mostly do not, if they can, then they are no longer eligible for slaughter. So Pickle is very bright. He watches how the gate works, and he's able to save himself, and he's able to find himself in the loving arms of a sanctuary. So it's all about stories. People connect with stories about individual animals. And while I don't think we're going to get where we need to be without legislation and a literal political will to change things, we first have to get everybody in the position where they want that political will. So I want these books are beautifully illustrated by Irene Blasco, who's from Valencia, Spain. So I really encourage everyone to check them out. But we give them away a lot of the times. I've donated them to sanctuaries because I want them to be read by children whose parents are receptive to compassionate living.
Very, very nice. Very nice. I love it. I also write children's book, and right now I'm working on a fable for young kids with vegan twist to old fables from, Hans and Christian and all the other rest.
Oh,
so I'm very excited for it to come out. But yes,
that sounds great.
But yes, kids, they don't. They see an apple, they see a pig, they want to eat the apple, hug the pig. They don't want to eat the pig, and the apple. So yes, they, as you said before, we inherently are compassionate, and it gets taken out of our, pure selves, which is terrible.
Yes.
But I think I concur with you that one of the things that we must do to change the landscape that we're seeing right now is to awareness, education, and speaking out in all forms, like you said.
Right.
Trying to do that kind of a thing. And, and it could be as easy as advocating for veganism could be just as easy as taking a vegan dish to a potluck, so, going to a restaurant and asking them if they have vegan options, because I know that sometimes I hear people, which I don't like, not the people, but what they say, that they don't want to make a fuss, or they don't want to be disruptive by asking. And I'm like, they're never going to learn, and they're never going to know what people going into the restaurant want. If you just say, oh, it's okay, I'm not going to eat, I'm just going to sit here, or I'm just going to have a salad or whatever, it doesn't help anyone to do that,
No, and it's fair that people need to know what to eat. And there are people who think, well, I don't want to hurt animals, but I don't know what I would eat. So they need our help. And restaurants, I think, bear a huge responsibility in offering options. I never go to a restaurant without saying, unless it's a completely vegan restaurant, where I say, I'm vegan. What can you offer me? And I've never been told nothing. And it's not a difficult conversation. In fact, oftentimes I get a real receptive, warm feeling like, yeah, we'd be happy to accommodate that. And if any time I find that there aren't enough or they want a review, I will write, you need more vegan options.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think that's a very positive statement, a
And
way to be an
I think
advocate.
that that's another good way to advocate. Write a review. You know,
Yeah,
it would be nice to have more vegan options, and you don't have to get into a fight, a challenge, or anything. You just can just give your opinion, okay? And that's how it. Um, and that's how we move it forward. Because again, we've been so, as I said before, so programmed
right.
to this that we don't think about those packages in the grocery store, like you said, as being sentient animals that were playing around, running. Well, not those specific ones because they grew up in a animal agriculture atmosphere, but that those same animals, pigs, cows, calves, all of them, chickens, they have their own lives. They like to play. They have community. They have family. They have
Mhm.
friends. They have their own kind of lifestyle that we've taken away from them. And just because they're not they're a animal and not a human animal, it doesn't make a difference because they're animals and we're animals.
That's right.
And
That's right.
people forget that is just a different type of animal, right?
That's right. And they have a right to be here just because. Somewhere along the way, humans got it into their head that everything is here for us. And if it isn't for us, then what good is it? And let's eliminate it. And that is, who are we to, how arrogant of us as humans
How
to think that,
pompous,
yes, yes,
right? To think that we're better than anybody else, right?
right.
We are all here in this planet together. We are all important. We all have a role to play, and is not about anyone dominating anybody else. Is about coexisting, whether coexisting with human animals or coexisting with animals is still all the same.
That's right. Agreed.
Um, so tell me, what do you see as being one of the challenges when you go out there to talk about, the importance of not consuming animals?
Well, I don't think that our current events are not in support of what's going on. It's becoming more difficult at this time. All the more reason to double down and keep pushing. That's not going to change. We're not going to stop. But I don't think it's a popular topic in a lot of circles right now. But I just notice when I bring it up, people are always curious, but oftentimes they just sort of, it's almost as though they're glazing it over. They aren't able to take it in. And I think that's just conditioning. So we just have to keep gently, kindly offering, little opportunities to try compassion, to think about it. You never know. What you say may have a big impact on someone. I have had many days, Nancy, where I feel like I haven't made any impact, and it can be quite depressing. But I just have to remember that that's not helping the animals, my being depressed, and that I just don't know. I'm a healthy senior citizen woman, and I think I'm living the example of what a plant-based life and compassionate living can look like. So I feel like I'm a good model, and that may be enough. Maybe that's enough to sway someone. You never know.
True. If you walk your talk, then
Mm-hmm.
that's a great way to advocate as well. You don't have to have big noise and signs. You could, the way you live shows it. I think also maybe bringing out more animal stories, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that people understand about how animals have emotions, how animals interact with their own species, just like we do. So to try to bring us closer. And that's one of the reasons why I used to say, animal and non human and non human, and I changed it to animal and human animal because that's more descriptive of what it is. Because when you say non human, then they're thinking of those packages. But when you say animal and human animal, now you're calling, you're reversing it. Instead of putting the animal on the outs, you're trying to say, hey, we're all animals and there's two different kinds of species of animals.
I love that. I'm always looking, we all are looking for the language that's going to make that shift, the imagery, the storytelling, all the things that are going to make, because you never know what's going to open somebody's mind and heart. And if they hear, well, wait a minute, aren't they animals and I'm a human? But if they're like, so no, 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 we're all animals. And if
Right.
they just even take that in, then I think we're moving the needle in the right direction.
Right. And also when we talk about animals, calling them they, he, she, and
It,
not it, because this is an it. But an animal is a living, breathing creature,
correct.
or it is
Yes.
not an it. And we have to, correct it. So sometimes when people are talking, they say that, I'm like, you mean he, she? Only because if they don't hear it, they just keep saying it. So and I'm sure that sometimes, maybe I might even say by mistake because you're talking and you're not, and then I correct myself. Wait a minute, what did I just say? Because we've been again conditioned to say these things. So if we start changing what we say, and put it out there, then people will listen a little bit different, I think. Any last words that you have for our viewers today, Cheryl?
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on. And what I like to say, Nancy, is that I'm just a regular person. I work at a bank. I am not a scientist. I don't have a sanctuary, but I have a voice. And this problem is so dire that we need every voice. So I hope I'm able to encourage one other person who is upset about this, who wants to do something to also speak out. Because while it's just, there's just not enough of us. We need more and more so that one day soon we'll be on, change will be on the ballot and we will make, you know, factory farming a thing of the past.
Yes, and we'll all be the better for it. The planet, the
Yep.
animals, and all humans. Thank you so very much, Cheryl, for being on the show. And I like to say, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Go vegan.
Love it.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.